Holy crap.
I believe it was 5 separate craft.
That's some straight UFO shit right there.
That's when I started seeing all of the lights and the contact that I've been witnessing. I just kept filming and looking up at the sky, and it just started happening more frequently.
Look, what is that? What is that? What was that?
Hi, this is ASDP ufologist Jody Brown from Arizona, and you are watching Alien Strand Podcast with host Donald Ledesma.
AlienStrand.com, the official website.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Alien Strand Podcast. I'm your host, Donald Ledesma, and welcome to today's show. Man, it's going to be an interesting one today. It's going to be a really good one, actually. So I got two authors today that are going to be talking about their book today and about some of their encounters that they've had as well. And, but before we bring them on, I just want to welcome you guys to ufology, man, because this is what it's about. Ufology and the learning process, not just ufology, but we do supernatural as well. We do everything like that that has to do with the unknown, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, all that good stuff that comes along with it, right? So thank you guys for just kind of helping and supporting the page and all the pages that are out there, right? And we're out there just trying to get things going. Queen Regina Palmer's out there. How you doing? You do it. She says, howdy, get notification. Everybody's out there. They're ready to rock and rolling. They're watching in the background. And it's going to be a really, really nice podcast tonight. We have, let's see, Diane Sable from in New Mexico. Wow, it's 5 p.m. over there. Terry Lynch is watching in the background too. Thank you, my brother. We are live actually on 8 to 10 platforms right now. And, as far as video, YouTube, X, the Instagram right now, we're live on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, welcome guys, man. I'm glad you guys are watching today. It's going to be a really good show. And not just that, but we're live on audio podcasts too. We're out on Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio right now. These are the ones that are live right now. But after this, it's going to be live on 26 other platforms. So you'll find it on Apple Podcasts. You can even ask Alexa, and she'll play you some Alien Strand podcasts out there. Zha's in the background. She's saying hi. How you doing out there? My sister. So she's out there watching, one of the biggest fans. So if you guys don't forget, catch us on Patreon. All right. It's free. Download it. You already know that comes along with it. Or we could do the $5 a month. We have a lot of good stuff happening there on Alien Strand Podcast. We had, of course, our podcast is still up there. And, are we alone in this universe? I talked about this last time. And of course, we have our merch. All that good stuff is going through. Now, I got some good news today. So the middle two, this is our second documentary that I directed and helped produce. And, it's a lot of, it has a lot of information on people that are contactees, right? So I finally, on my platform, on my distributing platform, comes out that this is one called Z Void, right? And they actually licensed the middle part too. Yay! So big hand for that. We were waiting on that for a long time now. So it's up to them to decide where they're going to distribute it to. It's their channels. But the good thing about this is in another country. This is in Israel, out there in that other general area. So they're going to be putting that movie out there for us as it goes. So thank you guys, Z Void, for that. Tonight's podcast. All right. So this is what we're going to be talking about, who they are, with authors Leslie and Stephen Shaw, right? And they're in the background right now. They're waiting for me to stop blabbling, but I need to give you guys a lot of this information because I think you guys need to have all this information, right? This is their book right there. It's called, Who They Are and What Are They Up To. So this is about their personal encounters as well. And, we're going to chat. We're going to have a good conversation. If you guys have any questions for them, throw them at me. I'll throw them on screen, and then I'll ask them the questions as we go along. That's how it is, man. And if you're listening to Audio Land, this is going to be a great podcast for you guys. We'll try to give you as many visuals as possible on your audio. I know it's kind of hard to visualize, but I'll try to explain them as we go. All right. So, of course, we're waiting for Amazon Prime to pick us up. I'm sure after this one, they're going to pick us up right away. Okay. This is just how it flows. And of course, the middle is our first documentary is out. Not on 10. I just found it today. 2 more channels picked it up. So we are live on 12 live channels, Tubi TV, TCL. This is our first documentary. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's for free on Tubi and TCL, or $2.99 at Amazon Prime. Thank you guys. Appreciate that. It was on our YouTube channel. It's down for a while. So you guys are going to have to go back on Tubi TV and all those just to go ahead and find it out there. All right. So the middle tetralogy, I am working on the third film as we talk about. It's going right along. It's turning out really nice. So stick around after you see part 2. Part 3 is going to be even better. So as you guys know, follow ASDP, our disclosure project. What we are is we all work together as a team. And, if you have any kind of UFOs that you've seen in the sky, anything like that, go to our Facebook group. It's a private group, but if you want to join, go out there, answer all the questions. Please answer all the questions because we have to have that. If you don't answer them all, you only answer one, we're going to kick you out of the, you're going to have to redo it all over again. All right. So let's go ahead and answer all the questions as we can go. Now, I'm excited. I am excited. I know you guys are too. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get Leslie and Steven on right now. They're hanging on the background. That way you guys can meet them. All right. So here we go.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Donald.
Hi. How you guys doing today?
And everyone all around the world.
Quite well.
Yeah, we're good. Thank you.
Nice. Well, thank you for being on the show today. I'm glad you reached out to me through Instagram, I believe, and because we're live up there on Instagram right now. But I was very intrigued by your book, right? And then you sent it to me, and I got to be honest with everybody. Like I told you earlier, I got through like 60 pages of it already. But man, is it a really good book, guys? You guys did a really good job on just the way you guys put everything on there, from the beginning to the history of the ufology and the way everything comes together. Now,
thank you so much.
Can you tell us from how this unfolded for you guys? How did you guys begin the creation of this?
Well, both Stephen and I are UFO witnesses. Stephen saw 3 before he met me, and then we saw 2 more together. It was my first in the 2015. And I believed Stephen when he told me they existed before. I just only believed him 95%. But when you finally see your first UFO, then you can't unsee it. And I believed him 100% after that. But then his family has also been victims of the abduction phenomenon for many years. And he'll relate those experiences more to you.
Yes. The other part of the motivation was not just our 20 years of research, but trying to explain what has been happening to myself and my family for at least 3 generations going back, as far as visitations. And I was brought up in a British household that went through World War II as children. Very, very, very no nonsense parents I had, and I was raised with this notion that we had this family spirit guide called O'Glegley that would show up from time to time and help people out. And I just grew up just believing that. And when I was 3 years old, I remember being awakened many different times by this being that would be jumping playfully on my stomach and on my chest that I couldn't see, but it was there. It was not menacing. It was just playful.
Wow.
And then when I was 9, I was sleeping in a bunk bed on the top of the bunk, and I heard this unusual sound in the living room. So I got out of the bunk bed being curious, but I felt something was wrong. So my heart was pounding and I was nervous, and I was, scared literally. And as I was about to turn the corner into the living room, everything went blank. And next thing I knew, I was back in my bed 2 or 3 hours later, and I was calm, and I have no recollection as far as what happened in between. Now, when I was about 11, that was when I saw my first UFO, which was about 9:30 p.m. This is in Woodland Hills, California, which is, it's in the San Fernando Valley. It's close to Encino. And it was this large orange globe that was moving just by itself, just pretty large. And it had no means or propulsion that I could see. And I was fascinated by it because it was just moving from north to south. So I called Griffiths Park Observatory the next day and talked to one of the astronomers there and said, well, unfortunately we don't have our telescopes, in that direction. So,
wow.
And the next one I saw was during the playoffs between the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees in 2005. I was at the Chart House in Malibu, and I was going out to get my car, and the valet got my car, and this is right on the beach. And we both saw this white UFO come out of the ocean and come up vertically and then kind of do some crazy moves and just zip off. And I said, "You saw that, right?" I said, "Oh yeah, I saw that." And then the next one I saw was a couple years later, and that was a mass sighting where I was driving down the Old Woman Springs Pass in Yucca Valley during the day, early morning. It was called into a radio station, and a lot of people saw this silver object that was just hovering in the air. And the other 2 that I saw were with Leslie. The most recent one was about 3 years ago.
Okay.
I want to tell my first one. We were driving home at night, and I was looking up through the windshield of the car I was driving, and I saw a bright white light up ahead of us. And at first I thought it was a plane coming into Palm Springs Airport, maybe, but it didn't have the running lights like planes. There was just a single white ball of light.
Right.
And it grew brighter and brighter as we moved towards it. And I'm not sure if it was just hovering or if we were both moving towards each other. But then it shot away over the northern horizon and gone in about a quarter of a second, moving at what had to have been thousands of miles per hour. And later in our research, I discovered one instance where they were caught on radar moving at 72,000 miles per hour.
Wow. Is that okay? Now the incident with Joshua Tree, is that what you're talking about, or is it something?
Yes,
before
that was in Joshua Tree.
Mm-hmm. Joshua Tree. So you guys were in Joshua Tree heading towards Palm Springs, right?
Yucca Valley. Yes, we're heading west. Mm-hmm.
Okay, heading west. So when you first saw this object, I mean, did you first think of it as, is this an airplane or at first, kind of like you don't think you know exactly what it is yet, right? Until you're actually kind of sitting there kind of dumbfounded, right? Is that
Exactly.
what
A
happened to you
ball
guys?
of light can be any number of things, but when they travel at thousands of miles an hour and instantly too at speed, that's when you know you're seeing a UFO.
And then the most recent one we saw was it 2021 or 2020, Leslie?
2020 October.
2020 October here where we're living in Desert Hot Springs. And to me, it was almost like they were saying hello to us, because the part of the sky it was in and the time it was like it was waiting for us to come out, because again, soundless, very, very bright white light making triangular
Impossible
movements,
yeah.
movements. And
Right.
I
You know
wish
aircraft has to kind of bank around to turn. This thing was going in V turns, like and instantly at speed too. Just
and then,
zoom,
then
zoom,
again it
zoom,
went
zoom,
off to
zoom.
the north, it went off to the horizon, at
again
incredible speeds.
at thousands of miles per hour.
So and after you guys, okay, so you had Stephen, you had already told her about the stuff you encountered before, right? And then after you saw your encounter, did you guys kind of put that together and say, okay, something's different here? Do we have
That's about
to?
when we started researching the book for real. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so that's pretty much where your pivotal point began, right?
Yes.
About 20 some odd years ago, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was
Okay.
about that. Actually, Leslie saw her first one
In 05.
in 05, yes.
So I guess 18 years ago.
Yes, about 05. But I'd always been interested in the subject because
Yes.
I just, especially if I talk about what happened to me when I was 18, there was a whole week of odd things that happened by anybody's stretch of imagination that
Right.
my dad, my sister, and I all experienced, especially myself back in 1979. I'm sure you probably read about that in the intro.
Yeah.
Don.
Yes,
Yeah.
there was some strange stories there. Now, about this entity or something that was in there and was dinging some kind of a silver bell or something like that you
Yes.
had,
Yes.
and it happened in front of your parents, correct, or something like that?
My dad, myself, and my sister, who's just a little bit younger than myself. Yes, we all heard it. We all heard it for going on for about 15 minutes. It was because I'm a musician. I'm very familiar with the different sounds of percussion instruments, and this was absolutely a silver bell, and we all heard it as a silver bell that was in the wall and next to the fireplace. It was very, very strange. This happened the night before. My father swore he came out for breakfast the next day. Said, Stephen, my closet doors opened and closed on me
All by
during
themselves.
the night. I said, well, that's strange, but I grew up in a family that accepted a family spirit, guys, so didn't think
Wow.
too much about it.
Yeah.
So the next night after the silver bells, I was sleeping in my bunk bed on the bottom of the bunk bed, and I was awakened by this whizzing sound in the air, and I thought, well, I don't know what it is. I just woke up, right? So I looked down the hallway, and there was nothing there, and I went to go back to sleep, rolled on my left side, and then the bed started being pushed from the foot area, from the base of the bed, two distinct pushes. And I thought, well, maybe it's like a little earthquake because we're in California, and trying to rationalize it as much as I could. And then it pushed again 2 times, just a little bit stronger. And then the third time it was a lot stronger. And then the fourth time I get tapped on the shoulder, just like somebody with your index finger taps me 3 times on my right shoulder, going tap, tap, tap. And at this point, I'm really annoyed and scared. So I rolled over and I said, what? And there was nothing there. But then I can't remember to this day whether I went back to sleep or whether I went out and told my dad. I don't know what happened.
Right.
All I can tell you is I was so shaken by that the next night I decided to sleep in the living room. So I was a cabinet maker. That's not important, but my dad and I, we ran our shop out of our house. So anyways, I decided to sleep in my clothes and on the couch in the living room. And about 5:30 in the morning, this is January of 1979, so it was dark. I woke up and I was aware of the piano because I was thinking about what I was going to play that day, and hearing the sound of the little fountain, whatever. And I was thinking, well, it's too early to get up. And so, anyways, I'm instantaneously from the front door, about 30 feet behind my head, this blue-white entity, skinny, but about 6 to 7 feet tall, moved from the front door like it was walking, but it was literally like it was gliding. And the
Wow.
whole house, the whole living room became filled with this intense blue white light. And this entity stopped by my right hand side, bent down towards my right ear, and the whole right side of my body just went paralyzed. Not in a scary way, but I just couldn't move it. I couldn't
Yeah.
do anything. And it said, "Hi, Steve," into my ear. It wasn't in my head. It said it directly into my ear, and it was neither masculine or feminine. And to this day, I try to remember how long that lasted. I It seemed like it lasted a few seconds to maybe 15 seconds, and then it left. But I
Yeah.
still can't remember whether I went and told my dad or my sister about what had just happened. What I do know is that 6 hours after this happened, I was getting hungry. My dad, we were going to get some, some lunch, and I just reached into my right hand side pocket to pull out whatever, coins I had and whatever, dollar bills, and all the coins that I pulled out of my right hand side pocket were magnetized. I could pick up the coins with the coins, and it didn't matter. I had nails in there too, but I could pick everything up. And my dad and I just looked at each other and said, "Well, that's not possible.
It's not supposed to be
Not supposed to be
possible.
possible."
American coins are designed not to be magnetized so that they
Right.
can go into Coke machines and
And
Pepsi
and
machines.
and the last night that weird things were happening was when my dad was awakened sometime around 2 o'clock in the morning. He saw this intense blue white light coming from out of my door, out of my bedroom, because I went back to sleep in the bedroom. And he was told in his head, "It's okay, Jeffrey, just go back to sleep. Nothing to see here. Everything's okay." So he went back to sleep. So that's kind of like just what
All in
happened.
1 week.
That was just 1 week. I mean, that was unusual, but this phenomena has followed me around to 6 different houses,
And the family
and
all
the
around
family, to
too.
England, to different parts of California.
Yes.
It's even crossed over to people that aren't genetically related to us, like my mother's older sister. She's married
Yeah.
to was married to a man from a Griffiths, and
And he even experienced the
he experienced
phenomenon.
Old Glegley. Old Glegley contacted him once and saved his
Mhm.
life. So this kind of thing is this seems to have followed us for at
So
least 3 generations.
so
And
we have
oh,
we
sorry.
we have no, we have a question here from Facebook users that says, when they were little, you guys, or it says, did you play any games with these little guys? Any kind of puzzle games? Do you remember when those things were happening to you, Stephen, or that if you remember kind of playing with these things in a sense?
That is a good question. I can just tell you, my brother, who was 6 years younger than me, he spent a few years sleeping in the closet because he was afraid of the little men that would visit him in the middle of the night. We did.
I don't recall you ever saying they played any games.
No, I didn't play any games, but what we
Yeah.
did, my sister and I, when we were teenagers, we messed around with the Ouija board for a little while,
Right.
and we were able to get it to move without our hands on it and that. But my mom she came from a family that did automatic writing and things such as that, and I played around with that a little bit myself. But as far as like playing games, I can't say that we did. No.
Let me ask you this question. If okay, since this started from the beginning, I mean, how do you feel if this entity or whatever it was, do you believe if it was it's an alien, or do you believe it's some kind of a ghost, or kind of mixed together?
Well, one of the other times Philip related to me, Philip is Stephen's brother. He he was awakened and he saw a gray alien in his room, and then immediately blacked out. And another time, he was reaching down from his bed to pet what he thought was a cat, and a hand grabbed his arm, and he blacked out again immediately. The one time Philip saw a gray alien is the only time we for sure saw a representative that we think is the cause of the entire problem, is the Greys. The
Yeah.
Greys are really good at manipulating memory. From our research, we found this. And Stephen's memory block is pretty fixed. We have been unable to break it with hypnotic regression.
Wow. Now, does other than the physical small touches that you get, Um, has anything else occurred? I'm like, have you experienced anything like it, moving objects, things like that, where it seems almost paranormalish just to you, or do you just see the extraterrestrial, the UFO in the sky more often now, since all this has been happening to you guys?
Well, they see orbs, right?
Well, Philip, yes, Philip
Yeah,
saw an
Philip
orb
had
actually
orbs.
brushed him at a house that he had built up in the area of Sonora, California, with my dad's help, and it was again, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. He was out on his deck, and there was this um,
An orb rushed
a
him.
reddish orb that was kind of stalking him, and it went through his body, through his
Wow.
neck
Yeah,
area,
it
his
rushed
shoulders,
straight at him and then
and it left
threw
a
him.
mark. It left a mark.
And then when I saw him the next day, I looked at his back and there was a bruise on his back.
It was a orb-shaped bruise. It was very odd.
Yes,
My
right,
brother
right
my
where he
brother
said it
was
came out.
my
Yeah.
brother was quite disturbed by this
Yeah.
stuff, and as you read in the book, you know that what happened
Right.
2017 after my dad died, unfortunately, of cancer. He took my mom's life and his life with a shotgun after he killed his cats. He just he started having a lot more problems hearing things, which I've heard all throughout my life. I've heard, doesn't matter where I live, like when I'm really getting to a very relaxed state, I'll hear a tap, 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 but sounds like somebody's like knocking
on the wall behind him.
right behind me, or
strange sounds.
Just all kinds of different odd manifestations.
Sometimes motorcycle revving,
Yes,
but there's no motorcycle there. It's a very strange phenomenon that has dogged them ever since.
Yes.
Do you hear like sometimes even before this, like a frequency change in your ear, or maybe some kind of a rumble? Do you hear that?
Yes, I've had that through since I was, oh man.
He described exactly that.
The first time I think I remember that happening, it's like a tone going, not it's like a D. It will go on usually in my left ear,
right?
Sometimes my right ear, but it will be like a monotone tone. It's almost like I'm being programmed or being tracked in a way.
Yeah.
And it will go on for a certain period of time, and then it will just go. It'll just like disappear.
Right.
I see the question below, and the way we still experience the phenomenon is whenever Steve slips into the astral or hypnopompic or hypnagogic state, we call it the state between waking and sleeping. Right. Where you can't move, but you're awake, but you can't quite move yet. That's called the hypnagogic or hypnopompic state. And most of the time when Steve enters that state, he perceives their presence. They're still with him. It seems like they're just on the other side of the veil of consciousness.
And I want to be specific. It's not sleep paralysis, because some people will say it's sleep paralysis, but what I experience is not that. I can move when I'm in that state. It's just a little more difficult, and I'm aware, I'm awake. As a matter of fact, just about a week ago, I went into bed earlier than Leslie, and I got into bed, and it felt exactly like somebody next to me got into bed next to me. And I've had this happen so many times. I said, okay, what do you want? Some entity, right? So I said, okay. So I decided, okay, it didn't answer me. So I went to sleep anyway. And I woke up, when I woke up like at about 5 o'clock in the morning, I was on my back and I was fully awake, and I was just going to get out of bed. And this voice, it sounded almost like Asian American, said, husband, in my right ear. And Leslie has never, ever referred to me as husband.
Wow.
And she wasn't in bed with me at all. But these things are still, in a sense, plaguing me even to this day. And this is like the 6 different house that we've lived in that this stuff has followed us. Literally, it's followed us. So,
but all of these experiences of ours were the impetus for us writing the book and the reasons that we wanted to write the book. But really, our research went down a very interesting path. As soon as we started researching the book, we immediately noticed that UFO facts and UFO theories were not in alignment. And in one example is the abduction phenomenon. Theory was saying that the aliens are just interested in us. They're just curious. They want to take a few samples and put us back. No big deal.
Right.
But that is turns out is not what's occurring. What's occurring is that they take the same person again and again and again through their lives, and
Exactly.
then they'll start taking their children, and then
Exactly.
they'll start taking their grandchildren. It's
Exactly.
like they find a genetic strain of DNA that meets the criteria they're looking for, and then they continue to harvest that strain for multiple generations.
And it seems like they like that like it's almost like it's in your blood. I'm not going to say Rh negative because I don't know if you have it or not, but it doesn't necessarily have to be Rh negative. It can just
No,
be
but you're right. About 4 out of 10 abductions are of Rh negative people.
yes, yes. But in your case, I mean, is that the case right with you? Are you Rh or no?
I'm A positive. She's A negative.
Okay.
And so I am Rh negative, but I don't know if I've been taken. I don't really know. I haven't had any
Well,
personal evidence of it that I know of.
When that, as an example, when that blue white light was filling the door of my doorway, when my dad was going to get up and see what that was, I have no recollection of that at all. I mean, I may very well have been taken. I certainly was contacted, but
right.
when that particular thing happened, I did not wake up. I have no recollection of that. So,
And Whitley Strieber describes being taken out of his bedroom by them with his sleeping wife right next to them. So
Right.
it could be that they're taking him every day and I wouldn't know it, or they could taking me every day and he wouldn't know it, except for those times where you happen to gain consciousness enough to notice that, oh my God, I'm on a metal slab with 5 aliens around me.
Let me ask you this question, you guys both. And this is what I ask every single one of my guests. Why do you think they picked you, these extraterrestrials? In your mind, why do you think?
Well, okay. At that time in my life, when I was 17 and 18, I had just started studying Tai Chi, and I ended up becoming a Tai Chi teacher for 23 years, and I was also reading a lot of Paramahansa Yogananda's work, and I was for an American young man, I was very chaste. Okay, it was I was leading as much as you could consider like a spiritual life in a Western civilization.
They were a very spiritual family,
Yes.
and also his very psychic family. His mother and grandmother were both automatic writers.
Wow.
And
I can
knew immediately when her mother died.
Yes, I can relate to that specifically. When I was 9 years old, my mom picked me up from elementary school, and she was crying, and I could tell. She said, "Mom, what's wrong?" Said, "My mother just died." Said, "Oh no, how do you know?" I said, "I was contacted. I got this feeling, and I did automatic writing, and I was contacted by Old Glegley and said that your mom has just died." And we didn't find out for a day or two after when we got the call from England saying that, your mother has died. She knew that about her mother, about her father, and Uncle Clifford. She knew, and she was contacted
and the
by
whole bunch of
automatic
you are
writing.
psychic. The whole bunch of them. Stephen is
Yes.
very psychic. He pulls words out of my mind constantly.
Well,
and I believe
odd
there
ones.
is a psychic component
Yes.
with this phenomenon. And also, it's primarily a Caucasian phenomenon. That's
Right.
another odd thing about it. Is the one study I looked into for the book was 94.6% of abductees are Caucasian. So
Right.
they're harvesting Caucasian DNA in fairly large quantities for what we think is their bizarre breeding program.
Right. And okay. So do you think that maybe you guys have a genetic backline, in other words, generations to generations, that a possibility, now I'm going to kind of throw this at you, a possibility that maybe one of your grandparents or great 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 grandparents was possibly a genetic extraterrestrial mixed hybrid, in a sense, because this has been going down the line since the very beginning, since you talked about all your families are really intuitive. They have all this nice, they can tell you things before things happen. Now, I know there's a lot of folks like that still, but there's something is giving you your aura or your inner self or your consciousness this this feeling to know these things, right? And it's beyond our realm, in a sense, like in humanity of just a regular human being of doing these things. Now, do you think that it's a possibility that you guys, maybe somebody in the family is maybe
That
hybrid?
I think you might be hitting a little close there. My
Maybe.
mother's maiden name was Roe, Roe, and I looked that up not long ago. And what it means, the derivation, it means the tall, red-headed ones, which is we kind of address that in our book.
Okay.
It's also
From
kind of
England, so
from
maybe
England, yes.
related to the Tuatha De Danann, the red-headed ones, the green-eyed,
Yeah,
blue-eyed.
there could very
Uh,
well be something that's going on there too. I don't I never met the Newmans, which were German English. I never met my great grandparents. So, but I do know that they were playing around and with spiritualism and automatic writing quite a bit. And like I say, I grew up in a family where it was just talked about and just accepted. I certainly didn't tell my friends at school when I was growing up. They would
Right.
have thought I was strange and weird. So it was kind of like something that the family kept as like, okay, we have a spirit guide called O'Glegley that will visit people from time to time, and that's exactly what happened.
Now, and I put this picture up there. I mean, it's like, do we know the difference from ETs to spiritual guidance, or do they kind of collaborate with each other? I mean, can you tell yourself what it is? Or are you still kind of like in the middle of what's happening to you guys?
in our theories, um, we believe that these are not creatures visiting from distant star systems, but are rather close relatives to humanity
More like
that
cousins.
separated from us 13,000 years ago during the Hiawatha asteroid impact event.
Okay.
So this race that is very similar to us. I mean, this is why, in our opinion, that Nordic aliens are indistinguishable from human beings, and gray aliens. Even if you look, Lonnie Zamora, Sergeant Lonnie Zamora, is one of the most
He's very credible.
trustworthy, credible witnesses in our research.
Right.
Who he was a police officer, and he saw an egg-shaped craft with four gray aliens around it. And at first, about 50 feet away, he thought he was looking at human children, 10-year-old
Wow.
children. They
Yeah.
were moving perfectly upright like we do. They were moving just like human children. And I realized that we have more in common physically with the grays than we do with any other creature that we know of, even more than our closest relatives, the chimps,
The bonobo
the
chimp.
bonobo chimps.
Yes.
Uh,
Right. Right. Right.
they work perfectly upright. They have elbows that bend the right way, legs the
Exactly.
same proportions as ours.
Exactly.
They look like human beings who have been underground for 13,000 years.
Yeah,
Or
bigger eyes and less hair.
and
So
we believe during the separation, and this is important, they kept their technology, whereas the Hiawatha asteroid impact of 13,000 years ago would have laid humanity low. Whatever accomplishments we had had up until that point would have been scoured off the earth by the 1,000-foot-high tsunamis. You'll read that as you get into the later chapters. We have 3 chapters devoted to the Hiawatha event being
Nice.
such a critically important event. I think it separated our race in two, and they have gone on to develop in different directions than us. But
Right.
that's why they're so similar, and I think that's why they're able to breed with us so
exactly,
easily. It's like I think
exactly.
they are a changed, mutated version of us, but still close cousins to us.
Right. And I've talked about that same thing before on the podcast. It's like, you know, how come we don't see two-headed extraterrestrials or four
Right? How come
arms?
it's not a ball with 50 tentacles?
Exactly. Or maybe a human with a horse head walking, whatever kind of looking
Yeah,
thing. It's
a
always
dolphin that walks. Yeah, or
it's,
something.
it's something that looks similar to our body structure, right? Like a human body
Yeah.
structure.
And
So,
all of the aliens that are
right,
described, even the reptilians and the insectoids, they
right,
are hominids, bipedal hominids, all.
right. Exactly. Somebody says out there, a distant cousin, probably,
That's
and
what we think,
they,
is that
they
we
go,
are physically related to them.
They do look
but
like
separated by thousands of years.
And the funny thing too, I want to mention that what I was attracted to as I was growing up and deciding what I wanted to do for my life, as far as what kind of craft or trade I was going to go into. I started as a cabinet maker, then I went into the military for 6 years as a CV,
right.
and I started going to school taking pre-med stuff, and I decided I wanted to become an acupuncturist. And it's kind of funny because I was teaching Tai Chi at that time, and I was thinking, well, should I be a chiropractor or an acupuncturist? And my students are saying, no, you make a much better acupuncturist. And I just gravitated right towards that. I just really understood how the points worked in the body and in theory, and I started doing it on dogs and cats and humans for about 20 years.
Nice.
And it was like I was meant to do it. Chinese was easy for me,
right.
and it was just like I was just coming home.
And so both of us were fairly spiritually oriented and worked on raising our chakras and the Kundalini energy. And we do believe that there is a component that that these creatures, not only did they not lose their technology, they didn't lose their spirituality.
Right.
We were thrown back into the caves and had to claw back into a society from those caves,
right.
But they were not. They continue to advance and evolve, both, we think, spiritually and technologically.
Yeah.
Why do you think that it started that way for them? In other words, like their physical appearance, the way they look with the big eyes, the big head, and long, skinny little arms and legs, and maybe 3 fingers. Some of them have 3 fingers, some have 4. Now, and I know they're out there in the universe. They're just not here. They're everywhere. But why do you think they're trying to grab our DNA, clone it, try to make, clones, of course, of mixed hybrids, and then in other words, are they trying to change their appearance to where they can actually mix with us? Is that your possibility of thinking?
Yes, we believe there's a couple different possibilities there. They're trying to basically uplift us in a sense to make us more compatible so they can reintegrate with us, or they want to try to help to make us a little bit less, human beings currently, we're a pretty angry, fearful bunch.
They consider us to be they still consider us to be barbarians.
Yeah.
What little we know about how they think about us, it's not flattering. And we noticed the UFO activity drastically increased after the use of the atomic bombs in World War II.
Right.
And we believe that they are quite alarmed about that. And they have been studying our nuclear capabilities ever since and experimenting on our nuclear capabilities. There was the Malmstrom incident in Montana, where a UFO parked in front of the base, and one by one, the nuclear warheads were all taken down offline, one after the other, all separate systems, computer systems. So quite the achievement all at once. And then they follow our carrier groups every time they go on maneuvers. This was something we didn't know until we saw we knew that they were following our military, but we didn't know every single time they go out. And we heard that in the disclosure hearings this
past
summer.
Yeah, yes. David Fravor and Graves were saying
that
they're being seen every single time they go on maneuvers. And they also said that only about 5 to 10% of the sightings actually get reported, because there still is this muzzle stigma attached with it. So,
but we get 10,000 reportings a year, so that means that we're really seeing 100,000,
100 to 200,000,
or 200,000.
Yeah, and it's not just plaguing the United States. It's also doing with the Russians and the Chinese, and there's different levels of acceptance. Like, people in Peru, they're very open. The military is very open to the idea of aliens, where we're still kind of playing around.
Our government is very closed,
still being evasive about it.
Yes, they were. I mean, it's gotten a little bit better with the release of the Elizondo videos to the New York Times in 2017. The DoD, the Department of Defense, had been just stonewalling us for 80 years, lying to us, lies, lies, lies. This isn't happening. It's swamp gas. It's mass hysteria. It's not happening. But right after the release of those videos, they shocked the UFO community, the ufology community, and told us that these things are real.
Right.
They released the full version of the videos with a statement saying these things are real. It's a real phenomenon that really is happening, but we don't know what it is. So we think it's still lying because we think they know quite well what it is. We think they have crashed ships and dead alien bodies and some live ones, maybe.
Well, why do you think after 60 years or so, they decided to say, okay, yeah, we know that they're out there. Why do you think after that much time they decided to do it? I mean, I know that as time goes on, things go forward. You know, we're of course now we got our bunch of cell phones everywhere, and we can catch these videos.
I think that's the reason. There's a video camera on every hip now. It's getting harder to hide.
And on every fighter jet as well, right? So it's tracking these things. So it's like I think there was just too many sightings of these pilots that they just couldn't keep enough of them to stay their mouth. Keep their mouth.
Elizondo, he released those 3 videos to the New York Times with an article and his testimony to them that this phenomenon is real and going on. So they would have had to refute, and he was the head of the department, by the way. So they would have had to refute and try and do the usual thing they did. But I think they just maybe gave up trying to hide it because they can't hide it anymore.
Yeah, we call it the golly gee. These things are there, but we don't really know what they are. Kind of the defense that, yeah, we acknowledge that there's something we don't know about. But they also said, too, that they don't seem to be a clear and present danger.
But they're still very closed. We've had no other videos released, even though we know they're being seen every time they go out. And they're still punishing whistleblowers. They're still going after them.
Their pensions and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So David Grush, the intelligence officer who was the whistleblower for that hearing, he's been harassed and hassled, and he's facing charges.
Oh, over and over. And they even said that they brought some old thing that he was a drunk and he fought with his wife. And I mean, I was over here thinking, oh, what does that have anything to do with what he was saying, right? So they were just trying to just make him look like a nobody, and that he was just talking out of you know what. But
we see them do that for years. They try and use ridicule to make people embarrassed to come forward, and then they'll try, threatening. They'll threaten them, and then they'll actually affect their jobs, try and get them fired. And then, of course, the one way to permanently silence people is murder, and we believe they've done that a few times to keep this secret.
Most definitely. I'm going to bring up this subject. It's a little touchy subject, but I want to know your thoughts about it because it does happen to a lot of folks. So it's the trauma, the PTSD of when you witness an extraterrestrial craft, or what's happening to you guys sometimes in your homes, things like this. Now, I bring this up in my films, in my documentary films, because it's very important, because this is what happens to a lot of folks is post-traumatic stress disorder. Now they don't have a name for it yet in the ufology community or within the doctor's realm or the community out there for them. It's just PTSD, and they have, there's only one for military, only one for this, one for that, but they don't have an actual one for ufology, right? Or what people go through after an extraterrestrial encounter, an abduction, things like that. Now, do you suffer from PTSD every once in a while? Does this kind of, or did you, and now you're okay and you've learned to go past this?
Oh, that's been something that has plagued me for quite a while. I will go through times where I get more frightened to go to sleep, and I literally can't turn my brain off. So then I start getting sleep deprivation, and that, of course, will affect your cognitive abilities. I had this one event happen with my ex-wife back in 1991. Again, it seems to be January. A lot of times these things happen, and I woke up about 6 o'clock in the morning. Again, it was dark. She was getting ready to go to. She was a school teacher, and so she was in the kitchen doing stuff, and I was still in bed. And I just rolled over to go back to sleep, and then I heard this Harley Davidson being revved up, and I was in a second story condo, and I thought, who the heck is revving up a Harley Davidson at 6 o'clock in the morning next to the pool? And I got out of bed and I went to go look out the window, and the noise stopped. There was no Harley Davidson, so I went back into bed, started to go back to sleep again, and the same thing happened. And I rolled over to my back, and I was getting really annoyed. And then it was like, honestly, it felt almost like a veil between my subconscious and my conscious mind was ripped open, and all these beings came into the room, and they were like harassing me and beckoning me to come with them, and it was very, very scary. And it went on for, I'm not sure whether it went on for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but I could not make them go away.
Wow.
And I had to drive like an hour to go to work. I was an acupuncturist at the time, so I think,
Right.
oh my God, I'm losing my mind. So I went to go seek some help after that. Actually, I went to a psychic because I didn't think that a psychologist. Well, I didn't have access to a psychologist at the time, so I went to go ask some advice from somebody that might know what was going on, and she gave me her piece of advice. And she did the tarot card thing, which I didn't really find that helpful at all. But she said, you might have some alien stuff going on. I said, well, no kidding. But yeah, I've also had interactions where I believe I've been helped twice in my life at least from dying, where aliens or angels show up and have basically saved my life. So I've had some interesting things happen that are.
So you've had some kind of divine intervention, like
Yes.
things like that has happened to you.
I believe so. Twice.
Yeah, I know when one happened. It was April the 1st, 1992. I was at Nicholas Canyon Beach with my prior wife, and I decided to go do some body surfing. The Pacific Ocean is kind of cold, especially April the 1st. So, I hadn't been swimming for a while, but I thought, oh, I'll just go out and do some body surfing with some guys, right? So I went out there, and then I noticed a bunch of the guys started to go in, and I said, oh, maybe I should start, going in now. So I started trying to swim in, and I guess I got into like a riptide because I wasn't making any progress. And then my arms just became like lead, where they got so cold that I literally could not move my arms. And I just said, oh my God, I'm about 100 feet off, 75 to 100 feet off the shore, and I'm going to die.
Oh no.
And I saw this lifeguard who was flirting with some girls by the lifeguard tower. And I thought, Stephen, all you can do is yell as loud as you can. So I yelled 3 times. The third time I yelled as loud as I could. And he heard me, or somebody heard me. And I went down. I was at least 6 feet under, and I started to see this bright light. I said, oh, I'm going to drown. Oh, this isn't so bad. I'm just going to swallow and I'm going to be dead. And within about 2 seconds after I went down, this guy somehow found me in the waves, moved. I don't know. Michael Phelps could not have moved that fast. He somehow found me 6 feet underwater and grabbed my arm, pulled me up, and then he pulled me into shore doing the way they do it. They put their arm around your neck and you're on your back. He said, relax. And I got out of the water, and I still couldn't move my arms, and I just sat down. My wife was really annoyed at me, and I said, I gotta thank this guy, right? And they said, what guy? It's the guy was gone, just was gone. What he did, whatever that being or entity did, was physiologically impossible to get to me because I was under. And it was
100 yards out.
Yeah, it was I was a long distance out, and how he got to me, I still don't know. And that was one of two.
Yeah.
So.
But back to the PTSD. I'm sorry.
PTSD.
I believe Philip suffered from that a great deal.
Yes.
That's we think his whole life. He was a brilliant man. We taught calculus. He's
an engineer,
almost a genius. Yeah, an engineer, brilliant man, but always somewhat disturbed. A loner, no relationships. He became grossly overweight. He became like a miser and he would never spend a nickel on himself in any way. It was just very, very strange.
And he had plenty of money, so it
Yeah,
wasn't like he
so
was like, was poor. He
What it
well,
wasn't.
was
like misers do, I guess.
like a
But
depression.
he,
Did he go
he
through
just wasn't. I guess normal is not a real word to use, but it seems like
Balanced. He wasn't really balanced.
yeah, he didn't. He
they-
didn't have a normal relationships for sure.
it was like a depression kind of state that he was in. Do you think that after he encountered this when he was younger or back, that's was the pivotal point moment where it started for him to go downhill from that moment on, where he couldn't understand exactly what was
Yeah.
happening to him
When
because
he
he did.
started in the closet.
Well,
Yeah, I think so.
he went through a kind of a normal period. Um, when he was in his teens and early 20s, when he had a really good job, and he seemed to be not suffering from it so much. But I think when he hit around the age of about 35 or 40, it started to
Affect
kind of
his health. Yeah.
affect his health a lot
He
more.
became a fibromyalgic, which is rare for
Yes,
men.
extremely
Only about
sensitive to
5%.
extremely sensitive to sounds and to smells. So very, because I was an acupuncturist, so I saw a lot of fibromyalgia, and it's a very real thing. And if
And
you're
he
not,
couldn't work any longer. And
he lost his job because he couldn't work any longer because of his back and his fibromyalgia. And I think that too took away some of his self-worth too. When a man loses his job,
and health.
and health.
At the age of very young. Fibromyalgia, I have it too, and it strikes when you're about 30, and in my case, and it turned me into a 65-year-old. It seemed like overnight.
Wow.
I've since treated it well, and I'm in almost a remission state. I'm enjoying
Good
a
for you. Good for
pretty
you.
decent health now, but
Good.
I understood what he was going through. It was quite debilitating, and we think all of it is rooted in this phenomenon.
And of course, you guys wrote the book on it, and
Mhm.
of course, we talked about the UFOs and why the abductions and the interactions. Now, when you had these interactions with these things, were you able to communicate back with them and kind of like a conversational kind of thing? Do you remember, or it was just like they were just kind of giving you the information?
Most of the time, it's a one-way avenue. I have actually one time. This will sound very odd. I was 23 years old. It was I was at the Fallbrook House in Woodland Hills, and at that time in my life I was in the military and in tremendous shape, and I was enjoying sleeping on the floor on my back, just with like a simple blanket. That's what I would like to do. And again, I woke up. It was before dawn, and the room I was in had these ceiling beams, and I felt very, very, very relaxed, and my body felt kind of like it was glued to the floor. But I was alert and I was awake, and I looked up towards one of the beams, and there was this little being, actually about 2 foot tall, but had a triangular head with these big eyes, and it was kind of shimmery. And once it noticed that I noticed it floated down and landed by the right side of my body, and it said in this deep baritone voice, "Do you want me to help you get out of your body?" And I felt this tiny fear in my gut, thinking I can't show fear. So I said, "You can help me, but you cannot possess me." And it grabbed my right arm, and it started to float back up into the air. And I heard this kind of like yell, like a frustration yell. And then it disappeared. And then I got up and I told my dad. He said, "Well, who were you talking to?" He said he heard two different voices, myself and somebody else. So it's sometimes the paranormal and the alien thing, I'm not sure 100% whether they fully they cross correlate or whether they're different. But I do know they like to hide, and they like to pretend to be gods. Sometimes they like to
Yes.
pretend to be space aliens. They want us looking up right now instead of looking under our feet.
Right. When I said that we separated from us for thousands of years ago, because of the Hiawatha asteroid impact, we believe a large contingent of them went underground, and another large contingent escaped into space.
Right.
So they sank these deep arcs underground in order to survive the cataclysmic impact and the climate chaos that followed for about 1,000 years. We think that's why they didn't come back out immediately. It's like for 1,000 years, you couldn't grow crops on the earth. The Younger Dryas boundary is the layer of soil laid down after the Hiawatha impact, and it's about 1,100 years worth of soil, showing extreme climate chaos and upheavals
on 4 different continents and 10 different countries. And,
Yeah.
and there was a mass conflagration
Yes.
that happened at the same time, and it's right there. So once
What
we
was-
found in 2016, once we found the Hiawatha impact crater, we found the murder weapon. We already had the dead body,
Yeah.
which was the nanodiamonds and the
The
boundary.
extinction events
So-
of that time period.
So now we know, and we can confirm that the Great Flood actually did happen.
Yes.
So where is the zero impact of the Hiawatha?
The Hiawatha asteroid crashed into the Hiawatha Glacier in northern Greenland
Northern Greenland. Okay.
13,000 years ago. It would have immediately vaporized 1,500 gigatons of ice, and a single gigaton is 100 billion metric tons. So 1,500 of those were immediately turned into water vapor. So it would have covered half the planet in cloud. And the amount of rain that would have poured down, unimaginable rain, that would have flooded the North American, the currents of the Atlantic Ocean immediately would have stopped running. So at the time of the impact, we were heading out of an ice age. We were almost completely out of it. But after the impact, it reversed course and shoved us right back into the ice age for another 1,000 years. So the few people that survived the actual cataclysm on the surface would have also had to contend with 1,100 years of barely survivability on the planet.
And genetic research shows that about at that time too, there was a genetic bottleneck,
Yeah.
where our population was severely decreased down to about 10,000 individuals. So we can actually confirm that too.
And the whole population on the planet now has regenerated from those 10,000 individuals. That's why we're so genetically not very diverse.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, we may have been a lot more psychic, before. We don't know what abilities have been lost.
See,
so you think by that impact that it had, because you talked about that nothing grew at that time after that, of course, because it was just a cataclysmic event, right? That possibly threw out some kind of maybe almost like a nuclear fallout in a sense, because usually when you have a nuclear bomb anywhere, it takes about 200 years before you can start planning anything, right? With our nuclear explosions. Now, this thing that happened,
the sun was being obstructed, so it wouldn't have been able to grow crops. We would have been forced to become hunter-gatherers again.
Right. So kind of underground, in a sense, we'd have to live underground.
Well, we believe they sank arcs underground and stayed there for 1,100 years.
One of the things we found through other research is in one of the chapters just how frequently these large, almost extinction events happen. Just how frequent these meteors and asteroids hit. It was a lot more than we even thought. So
it's a good. There's a good reason to stay underground.
It's a good reason to not. If you don't want to keep on being, knocked back into the Stone Age, why don't you take your technology with you and go someplace safer?
You don't have to worry about tsunamis or earthquakes or hurricanes.
And I was a cave explorer for a number of years. I can tell you that things don't move underground like they do on the surface. It's really interesting. It's just you don't feel the same. You don't feel earthquakes underground.
No, you don't.
Wow. Well, man, this is such an amazing podcast. You guys are just so informative. I love it. So unfortunately, we're coming to the end of the podcast, but I'm glad that you guys were able to on the show today. You gave a lot of information, a lot of insight. There was a lot of people listening and watching in the background, just chiming in, your book, how did you guys come up with the title by chance?
The title is Who They Are and What They're Up To.
I mean, how we came up with the title?
Yeah. How did you come up with that title, that nice title?
Well, that's what I tried to explain to people. This is the quest of this book, is to expose who are flying these UFOs in our skies and what their motivations are. So we began closely monitoring what they're doing. That's the only way to really find out what what they're up to is to monitor what
Yeah,
they're doing.
Leslie came up with the title, and I thought it
Yeah.
was quite good. I don't know quite how she came up with it, but it was almost like answering our own question, like, well, who are they, and,
And
what are they doing?
That's what I keep seeing. I kept seeing people on television shows about UFOs. We watched them all, yes. And these poor people would be looking up in the sky going, who are they? What do they want? What are they doing here?
But a lot of our research actually started with guys like Graham Hancock and William Bramley back when people were reading books.
Yeah, we were reading all those books.
I really
yeah.
started, doing the research maybe back in the early '90s, late '80s. So
Yes,
a lot of our stuff is pre internet.
like a lifelong interest in it.
a
Really.
lifelong interest. I've been searching for answers for most of my life, quite frankly. Quite
Nice.
frankly.
Well, Marisol out there, she says, thank you guys for coming to the show and telling us about your experience. Come back soon. There's a lot of people
Thank
out
you,
there.
Marisol.
Yes, and they just loved all your insights and everything that you guys had to say tonight. And here on Alien Strand, thank you guys for just being on the show today. I
Thank you so
really
much for
appreciate
having
it.
us.
Oh yes, it was awesome. So, where can people find you guys?
We're on Amazon and Ingram as far as ordering the book. And you can also find us at Facebook and Instagram at the same handle. It's leslie.shaw.author. And we have a website with some blogs and excerpts at whotheyarebook.com.
Right on. Nice. Well, I mean, I'm glad that you guys thank you for sending me the manuscript for one. I'm going to finish. I'm going to read it through and I'm going to go buy the book because I love it. It just, I read a lot of these books of UFOs and like I told you earlier, I'm not bragging because you guys are on the show, but it kind of starts like that. But yours is like very informative and it gives you the dates, times, things like that. And it kind of comes all together from the beginning to where I need to catch up to right now, actually. But you guys just did it so well. And everybody out there that are listening tonight or watching tonight, please go get their book. It's an amazing book. Find it at whotheyarebook.com and look for them on Instagram. That's where she found me, and Facebook. And, wonderful people. Thank you guys for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Donald.
Sure.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, it's time to go. But you guys have yourselves a good day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, guys. Hang loose in the background real quick, okay? And then I'll talk to you after the show.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for sticking around today. And just this was an amazing podcast, and I'm glad you guys were chiming in today. Everybody's out there, Terry Lynch, everybody out there, Marisol, Regina was out there. We had a lot of folks just chiming in today and just giving their information. Neo Blue Sangier was out there. Erica Garcia was out there. All these folks were just watching this amazing podcast as it unfolded, as they told their stories, because it's like she said, and it's like what I always say, you once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? And seeing is believing, because that's what my documentaries are about. I'm going to show you the footage, and they're showing you as they're telling you in the book. They're showing you the information, and all the information is in there, and what happened to them. Now, there was some unfortunate incidents that happened there, but at the same time, they're letting you know, and they're giving you disclosure as it's happening, and they're giving you a lot of things that, of course, with the meteor and how everything comes together, right? And that's disclosure, right? And that's what we want to do to studying ufologists out there, or just regular people that just are interested in this subject, because it goes back a long way. And we can talk for hours and hours, but there's only so much that we can do in an hour. But at least you guys were able to get all this information. Again, I want to thank you guys for listening to the show. Catch us on 26, 27 platforms. On audio, you can catch us on right now, video, YouTube. Give us a like, subscribe. Go check out our documentary out there. I really appreciate you guys for just listening to me ramble for a little bit. But until then, you guys have yourselves a good day. Have yourselves a good evening. And have yourselves a good night. Happy New Year.